We've heard about it in history class. Our grandparents may have even told us stories about it. And we've seen it in lots of movies. But what exactly was World War II? Hi, I'm here with Life Noggin. World War II, often shortened to W2 or just World War, was a global war that lasted from 1939 to 1945. It was the most widespread war in history, involving the vast majority of the world's nations, which were aligned into two opposing military coalitions, the Allies and the Axis. The war was fought in Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Pacific, and was the largest armed conflict in history with more than 100 million military personnel and over 40 million civilians mobilized. World War II was the deadliest conflict in human history, with an estimated 70 to 85 million fatalities. Before we get into the causes, let's take a quick look at who was involved. The major Allied powers were the United Kingdom, the US, Soviet Union, France, and China. The main Axis powers were Germany, Japan, and Italy. Other countries were drawn into the conflict as well. For example, the Netherlands was quickly occupied by Germany, and many of their soldiers were taken prisoner. Soon after, the Soviet Union invaded Poland from the east, taking much of its territory and also imprisoning many. When Finland refused to join the Germans in their war against the Soviet Union, they were attacked and lost some of their land to the Soviets. Even though they were technically not an official participant in the war, they did fight back against both the Germans and Soviets. So they are sometimes referred to as the Winter War nation. Eventually, the French would also be defeated and taken prisoner by Germany. Much of Western Europe was occupied by German forces, and many people were imprisoned in one of Germany's infamous prison camps. By 1943, the situation had turned around, and the tide of the war was turning against the Axis powers. More countries joined the Allies, and the war continued until 1945. But what caused this long and bloody conflict? One of the main factors leading up to World War II was the Treaty of Versailles, which ended World War I. The treaty placed strict economic and territorial penalties on Germany, which left many Germans feeling humiliated and bitter about the peace treaty. This created a breeding ground for extreme nationalism and the desire to overturn the treaty. Enter Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party. Hitler promised to restore German pride and undo the Treaty of Versailles. He also promised to expand German territory and establish German dominance in Europe. Appealing to the German people's desire for revenge, their economic hardship, and their need for a strong leader, Hitler and the Nazis came to power in 1933. In the meantime, Japan had also emerged as a major power in the Pacific. They too sought expansionist policies, particularly in China, where they had been since the early 20th century. In 1937, Japan invaded China and committed horrific atrocities against the Chinese people. But despite international condemnation, no serious action was taken to stop them. This emboldened Hitler to begin his own aggressive foreign policy. In 1938, he annexed Austria and demanded the region of Czechoslovakia. When the British and French leaders met with Hitler to discuss his demands, he threatened war lest they were met. And because the other European countries were still recovering from World War I, they didn't want another war. So they agreed to his demands. On September 1st, 1939, German troops marched into Poland and the war began. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war on Germany, but they were not prepared to fight. At the time, Germany was in a strategic position. They had powerful allies and controlled much of Europe. On June 22, 1941, Germany invaded the Soviet Union. This violated their non-aggression pact and caught the Soviets off guard. For a time, Germany advanced rapidly, but they soon encountered fierce resistance. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, Japan attacked the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor. This brought the United States into the war, but America was not prepared to fight either. During the next several years, there were many significant events that turned the tide of the war in favor of the Allies. In 1942, the Battle of Midway was a decisive victory for the U.S. Navy against the Japanese. This marked a turning point in the Pacific and the beginning of Japan's decline in the war. In 1944, Allied troops landed in Normandy, France, opening a second front in Europe. This led to the liberation of France and the eventual collapse of Nazi Germany. Also in 1945, the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In response, Japan surrendered on September 2, 1945, bringing an end to World War II. To learn more about any of these events, check out the additional resources. And as always, thank you for watching.